So if you have your article Gemara, we are holding here in Mesechta Megillah Daf Chav Zayin Amud 27a2. And it's on the screen. I know it needs to see it a little bit larger. We're going through all the tashmas. Tashma is come, let me ask you a question, and we give an answer. Could you sell one Torah to buy another Torah? Amud Aleph 27a. And if you have a article 27a2, I think the first column. I don't have it. Could I sell an old Sefer Torah, buy a new Sefer Torah? And we're bringing different Mishnahs and Brisas to 27a. If you bring it to me, I can. That's 27a5, 27a2. Over here, the second paragraph. In English. We brought several. I want to see it in Jewish. In the Jewish, Okay. We brought several proofs about can we stack a Sefer Torah one on top of the other, right? As this picture so eloquently made it out. And there's some shul in Yerushalayim where they do this every year by Hakafas. We brought different proofs. When you roll up a Sefer Torah one on top of the other, we went into the halacha. If anybody wants to read it, it's printed up over here. The halacha about which svarim could be stacked one on top of the other. And to see if there is a holiness, inherent kedusha in one type of sefer over another. A Sefer Torah is the highest level of holiness. Can you sell it in order to buy a new Sefer Torah? If it was done already, for whatever reason, so then you could sell it in order to buy. If the Sefer Torah was sold for whatever reason, but after the fact it was sold, then the funds have to be used to buy a new Sefer Torah. However,
if it's in terrible condition,
right. So is this still kosher and usable? Then that's a whole discussion of this Gemara over here, and we haven't yet came to the conclusion. So now we're going to come to a very, you could say, contemporary idea. Rabbi Heller, who was the head of the Kollel, for young married guys in Crown Heights.
This should be Lubavitch, right?
Lubavitch, yeah. I mean, he originally was Brisk, and he became Lubavitch later on. He's a grandson of Tosfos Yamtiv, Rabbi Heller, a very big Talmid Chacham. So he would, when he speaks to the Kollel, I remember one time him saying that so many people make achnasa Sefer Torah, a dedication for a new Sefer Torah. And he said it's more important, instead of making a dedication for a new Sefer Torah, to take that same amount of money you would have paid for a new Torah, say it's $50,000, and to pay tuition for boys or girls in yeshiva and school who wouldn't be able to afford it. True, one is an everlasting, lasts forever. It lasts for many, many decades. It has a name on it. People dance with it. And if you pay tuition for somebody in yeshiva, it's not going to be any plaques about it. You're not going to have crowds about it. In 2 years, it'll be forgotten. But it's more important, he says, to pay tuition for yeshiva, for someone to learn Torah, because a Jewish person learning Torah is a living Torah. More important than to dedicate a new Sefer Torah.
I have an amazing story over there.
Can we do it post here, if possible? Yeah, and he's an absolutely special person, and definitely he was sure. So this is what this is where we're up to now in the Gemara, discussing what's more important, to learn Torah, or could you even, to buy a new Sefer Torah, or could you even sell a Sefer Torah in order to learn Torah? So Tashma, come in here. Amar Rabba Bar Chana, says Rabba, the son of Bar Chana, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Mishum Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, the name of Rabbi Yochanan, in the name of Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel. So going back all the way to the Tanoim. Lo yimkar adam Sefer Torah yashan likach beichadash. A person should not sell an old Sefer Torah in order to buy a new Sefer Torah. Seemingly, this answers our question. Could you sell a Torah to buy a Torah? And we have a clear teaching from Rabbi Shimon and Gamliel. They cannot do it. The Gemara says not so simple. Hassam, over there where Rabbi Shimon and Gamliel said that one cannot sell an old Sefer Torah to buy a new Sefer Torah, mishum pshiyusa. That's because you're worried about somebody will be negligent. Somebody goes ahead and sells an old Sefer Torah. They get whatever money they get for it, $25,000. He has money in his bank account. He might conveniently or somehow forget to buy a new Sefer Torah with it. So therefore, he says he cannot do it. Or maybe there's no more Sefer Torah available on the market somehow.
Oh, yeah.
And the funds might just get lost somehow.
Not up to my standards.
Right. Interesting. I have a sister and brother-in-law of mine. They're shluchim in one of the areas of Palm Beach in Florida. And there's someone who lives over there who is very into buying new Sefer Torah.
Wait, your brother, what sister?
I have 9.
Oh,
Yeah,
I forgot.
and so there's a person over there who likes dedicating. In all the shuls where he lived in the past, he always dedicated Sefer Torah, and he likes refurbishing old Sefer Torah. So one of the Sefer Torah. So he wanted to get them a new Sefer Torah for their shul.
Does you think it's your brother-in-law?
Yeah. No, not my brother-in-law. This particular individual who wanted to dedicate a Torah. He dedicated Torahs before that in other shuls, but now then he got another home over there in Palm Beach, and he wanted to get dedicated a Torah for them, but only to take an old Sefer Torah and to give it a new lease, to have it fixed up and made proper. So my brother-in-law said he knows I guess Ksav Yaz very well, and he wanted to get only a Sefer Torah with Ksav of the Alter Rebbe, a special Sefer Torah writing that the Alter Rebbe has, and to find an old one, because there are not so many old ones, they finally found one, and it's very interesting. It came from the town of Lubavitch, and it was written in the year 1864 from the town of Lubavitch. A Sefer Torah written in the Alter Rebbe's Ksav. They got it fixed up, and it was dedicated to one of the Sefer Torah in their shul. But to think about it, you have a Sefer Torah that was in the town of Lubavitch at the time of the Tzemach Tzedek, and it's now in the shul in Palm Beach in use. It's quite amazing. Yeah, so it's definitely a special thing to have a lease on a Sefer Torah, even to give a new lease to an old Sefer Torah. And we saw yesterday these pictures about many of these old Sefer Torah the Nazis ransacked, the Nazis destroyed, and they were brought to England. And this is later on when they're being dedicated, being refurbished, and whichever ones could be used were used again.
So many times, the Sefer Torah that are that old are not restorable, and it's not my thing.
Correct.
So experts seem to say.
Correct. During World War II, my father's father, he ran away from the Nazis. Right? Discussed. He was in a house having a Yud Beis Tammuz Verbringen when the Nazis came with the planes and they bombed the city and they bombed the house. And the wife of the Rav, whose house it was, that died in that bombing. Took them a whole night to undig themselves from the rubble. They ran away from the Nazis that night. So he came to Samarkand, which is a city far away in Kazakhstan. And, you're under the Soviet communism, and there's no economy, nothing to speak of. There's big hunger.
This is your grandfather?
My father's father. So everyone did whatever they could to survive, especially Uzbekistan. You're right, Uzbeks, Uzbekistan. And everyone did black market dealings and whatever they could to get ahead. And there was many people dying every single day in the streets. So there was a Rav which had an old Sefer Torah, which he brought with him from wherever he ran away from the Nazis to Samarkand, and he passed away with no children. And they were selling the Sefer Torah to use the funds for his burial. And so my grandfather then had a little money from different things he was doing, and he said, whatever anybody bids, I'm going to bid like a 500 ruble more than that. And they bought the Sefer Torah. And this Sefer Torah, he bought it. It was for 7 years buried in the ground in a yard belonging to someone who's not Jewish. And because they didn't want to bury it in a Jewish person's yard because, they might decide to dig over there. So they found the yard of someone who's not Jewish, buried it, and was 7 years underground. And later on, he smuggled a Torah out of Russia with him. He crossed the borders illegally, going through the forest. He carried that Sefer Torah with him. And he gave it to a Sefer to fix up. So the one parchment the one area where the Torah was open to, like where it was not rolled up, so all the letters turned green, just from being underground for so many years. And the rest of the Torah had to be fixed, a little bit, so they fixed it up. And the Sefer Torah was in 770 for many decades. And after he passed away, the family moved it, and now it's in Scranton, Pennsylvania, one of the shuls over there, for that same Sefer Torah. So it's important to give a new lease of life to an old Torah.
And you had said actually that the wife of the Rav died in the bombing.
Yeah. There was an interesting discussion going on by that Farbrengen. This is 1941, Yud Beis Tammuz, in the town of Neville. It says, should we stay or should we run? It says, who could be, we're under communists. No one could be worse than the communists. And remember, in World War I, the Nazis were nice to the Jews. No, the Germans were nice to the Jews.
In fact, what my grandmother said.
Right.
They were so nice to us.
Right. So why should we, let the Germans come? And it can't be worse than what's going on right now. But we hear rumors that they're killing Jews. So somebody stood up and said, if there was a rumor that they're being nice to the Jews, then you should be worried. Is it true? Is it not true? But if it's a rumor that they're killing Jews, you definitely should believe it. So many of them ran away that night. And unfortunately, those who stayed, the Nazis came, and already in Elul, there were Tammuz of Elul, already Elul, and the 2 days of Rosh Hashanah, and the day of Yom Kippur is when they massacred all the Jews of Neville. So already two and a half months later, Nazis already killed all the Jews in Neville, those who didn't run away.
It's easy to tell people, just if you run away. But
it's not easy. Especially, it said that they're running away barefoot, and the Nazis were chasing them with tanks and planes.
I'm saying, it says it's easy to tell people, but in actual fact,
they're on the side of the road, and there's a grandmother says she remembers that there was like there were ditches on the side of the road for drainage. So whenever planes would come to bomb, they would run into the ditches, and the planes were flying so low they could even see the pilots. She saw a young, handsome pilot in his 20s, and he looked so nice and handsome, and then he goes and he strafes a woman and her children inside of the trenches on the side, inside of the ditches. No, with bullets.
Oh.
And so he didn't look so nice anymore. So Baruch Hashem, they managed to run away. So the Gemara says that with the Rebbe Shimon Gamliel says you cannot sell an old Sefer Torah to buy a new one, that's to go ahead and do it, because you might not buy a new one. Kikam Rinan, however, going to Kasav Manech Lafruki Mai. If I have a brand new Sefer Torah, beautiful Sefer Torah, ready to be bought, it's reserved with my name on it. And my reservation expires in 24 hours. And could I sell the old Sefer Torah and right away buy a new one? Or could I exchange the old one for a new one? So do we say that since they're both Sefer Torahs and they're both on the equal level of holiness, I could sell one for the other? Or if Sefer Torah is an unmovable object and you cannot sell one in order to buy another. I can only make it holier, but not on the equal level of holiness. So Gemara now wants to try finding an answer to the question. Tashma, coming here from another, I think, Mishnah, which Rabbi Yechanan Mishum Rebbe Meir. Rabbi Yechanan says the name of Rebbe Meir. Ein Meichon Sefer Torah, Ella Lilmod Torah V'Lisa Isha. You're only allowed to sell a Sefer Torah for one of two things. Either in order to learn Torah, let's say a person has to support themselves learning in yeshiva. If you own a Sefer Torah, you could sell it in order to learn Torah, or to get married. if you need money to get married, and the only way to earn money is by selling a Sefer Torah, so then you're allowed to do it. We're talking about private Torahs, a Torah belonging to an individual. Many people used to write for themselves their own Sefer Torah.
So it seems to be there could be many other reasons to free someone from jail.
Captivity, correct.
Yeah.
That's also permitted, right? As we're going to see here, that a Jewish person is more precious than a Sefer Torah, because a Jewish person is a walking, living, breathing Torah. And you're only allowed to sell a Sefer Torah in order to learn Torah or in order to marry someone. Learning Torah means paying tuition, paying the fees to learn Torah. So we see how important that is. Rabbi J.J. Hecht, there was one time he was a Rav of a shul, and he was a tremendous, you could say, doer, tremendous askan. What? That was his brother. He was a shul in East Flatbush. Mordechai and David's father was a Rav in that shul. It was a Chazan in that shul. He also had Moshe Oisher, I think, was a Chazan in that shul. It was a very big shul. He had a radio program. He brought out thousands of Iranian children from Iran. So he ran the National Council of NCJFE, Jewish, for the furtherance of Jewish education.
Moshe Oisher, wasn't he the one if we there was a catering?
Correct, yeah.
But he really wasn't a frum guy, yeah?
Yeah, correct. They say he would. Yeah. He actually he asked the Rebbe, could he be a chazan in the shul? Someone like Moshe Oisher, and the Rebbe told him he was already booked, and he was already paid his fee, and people are expecting it. You shouldn't stop it. For the coming year, you'll do something else, and that's what they did.
I was wondering about that too.
So he was a very dynamic person. He started Yeshiva Hadar Torah. He started Camp Emunah. He started many things. Release time, right? Release time. Tens of thousands of Jewish children learning Torah, Shema Yisrael, going out of public school for that. Ran Lag B'Omer parades, rallies. You went to release time as a kid?
Only 3 or 4 times. And then somehow they talked us into going to a Hebrew school. So I started at a Hebrew school.
Instead of release time. Yeah, but I'm saying Rabbi Karp went to release time as a kid. It's all Rabbi Hecht. My father used to go do a release time. There's a public school on Empire Boulevard right across from where now is Empire Shtibel. They used to almost empty out the entire school. Most of the school was Jewish. Used to almost empty out the entire school and take them to the shul across the street where now is Empire Shtibel. And they had two yeshiva boys teaching over 100 kids. And said the only way they managed to get any type of learning in was throw lots and lots of prizes and candy and treats and bribing. It's all Rabbi Hecht. And plus many more things. Like Machon Chana, he also started, right? He also began, and all the years he ran it. And whenever anything had the Rebbe told them, "You're my general." Right? So here's one little anecdote of Rabbi Hecht. Let me see if we can hear.
Another 2 hours, we spent an hour over there. I killed your whole day for you. I says, I don't know how to thank you for what you did for me. He says to me, listen, Rabbi, I got to tell you one thing. I am a salesman. And the only thing that counts is I didn't get the order. And since I didn't get
Let me see if it's not working any better.
everything else doesn't amount to anything. Our Rebbe the Gesundheit doesn't like a lot of talk. He likes the bottom line. He wants to see action. In all the excuses, in all the Pfeffer, in all the devotion, go right out the window. Don't have any place by him. He doesn't spend 1 second on it. He looks at the bottom line. Does that besuk get done? Okay. Must the shuk get the bottom have no time.
It's Rabbi Hecht. And there was somebody wanted to dedicate a new Sefer Torah for the shul. And he gave the funds, and then he asked Rabbi Hecht, "Where's the money? Where's the new Torah? I want to see it." He says, "Come with me." And he brought him to a yeshiva, and he says, "You see all these boys? They were in public school. Now they're in yeshiva with the money that you gave for the Sefer Torah. You wanted to give a Sefer Torah. It's going to be an Aron Kodesh. I'm giving you 5 living Sefer Torahs right now, which are going to have Jewish families, all because you paid for them." So he says, it's important, more important than a Sefer Torah itself is, more important than Sefer Torah is to learn Torah. It's to help or to support those who learn Torah. It's not as fancy. You're not going to get as many headlines, but that's much more important than dedicating a Sefer Torah. Shma Mina. And based on this, we can get the conclusion of the Gemara. Torah b'Torah shaper dami. You are allowed to sell one Torah for one Torah scroll to get another Torah scroll. Because if you can sell a Sefer Torah in order to go fund learning of Torah, so then from there, we can see that you can sell one Sefer Torah to buy another Sefer Torah. The Gemara says no. Dilma shiny limud. Perhaps learning Torah is more important than actually a Sefer Torah itself. Because shalimud may be l'dei ma'aseh. Because when you learn Torah, Torah is a medicine. It's going to bring you eventually to action, to learn, to start fulfilling mitzvahs. And so therefore, it's what's more important than objects? Action. So more important than the Sefer Torah is learning Torah, because it will get you to do all the mitzvahs of the Torah. Ishanami, also you can sell a Sefer Torah in order to get married, because it's important to get married because the mitzvah is so important, the mitzvah of getting married, because Hashem did not create the world to be empty, but rather to be settled. So getting married, said even if it's not for, even if you're not having children definitely is settling the world. But even getting married without children is also a portion, it's also a part of settling the world as well. And
people getting married too.
Correct. So even that's part of the Shabbos Yisara, correct. And the Magen Avram actually ruled, this interesting tshuva that he has, that you could sell a Sefer Torah in order to help orphan girls get married, in order to help for their wedding. Mm-hmm. Right. It's a tshuva that he writes. A very interesting. So therefore, you see how important it is to get married. How important it is to learn Torah, pay tuition for those who can't learn Torah otherwise. That even is more important than a Sefer Torah itself. The Rambam passes halacha that you are allowed to sell a Sefer Torah only if you have a guaranteed another Sefer Torah in order to buy. But you cannot sell a Sefer Torah in order to beautify a shul. You cannot sell a Sefer Torah in order to get svarim for your shul. There's a mitzvah for every single person to write their own Sefer Torah. It's one of the mitzvahs of the Torah. One of the ways of doing it is by buying svarim, buying books. So therefore, you're not allowed to sell your svarim. You're not allowed to sell your books unless you're going to buy other svarim, other books, other svarim with it. Otherwise, you can't sell your svarim. Because in this particular thing, your Sefer would have the same sort of value as the Sefer Torah, which you're not allowed to sell it to buy something of lesser value. So if I want to sell my svarim in order to fund the building of a new shul, it's a big question, but halachically really shouldn't be doing it. We see nowadays a lot of people would sell their svarim. There's a website I think called the Svarim Exchange, but they're doing it in order to buy another sefer, another book. If you have a nicer book, you're going to get a nicer sefer for it. There's one more point, which is that a Sefer Torah shel yachid, a Sefer Torah which does not belong to a community, but belongs to an individual, there is more leeway. There's more leeway allowed because they say perhaps a Sefer Torah, which is an individual, the owner could do whatever they want with the Sefer Torah. Many bar mitzvah boys get presents, and then the person buys them some svarim, some books for their bar mitzvah. But then they want to exchange it for something else. Because let's say they got 10 sets of, I don't know, 10 sets of shas, 5 sets of shas. They want to exchange it for something else.
Yeah.
So it all boils back to this Gemara over here. And the Taz writes that when the present was given to the bar mitzvah boy, it was given with the stipulation that they could do whatever they want with it, so then it never really entered the possession of the bar mitzvah boy or possession of the one buying it. It was made in such a way that they could exchange it.
Could people that
But if you got 2 sets of shas, one is it's of no value to you. You
Correct.
don't need to.
So when the person is giving it, the person should have in mind that if the bar mitzvah boy wants to exchange it, he could.
Yeah.
Right. For example, many of them come with a gift receipt, right? That you could exchange it for the value of what you got. When you're doing that, you're saying that I understand that you could exchange it for another, say for another book. Let's say the bar mitzvah boy wants to exchange his set of shas that he got for a menorah. So he would be allowed to do that too, because it was bought with such a stipulation in mind.
Yeah.
so could,
What if he wants to exchange his shas for baseball cards?
So probably
But
depends.
he has permission to do whatever he wants.
So you're saying, does the gift receipt have that in mind as well? Yeah, good question.
so should when you buy a sefer, can you have in mind, that I can, to do that, in terms of buying it, but with the stipulation I can,
Return it and get the value?
could you, or?
You could. Yeah, I think you could. Yeah, if that stipulation was in mind, then any stipulation which you make in advance, it's fine.
I see, so there's,
If you want to make sure that they're only going to get svarim, you should give them the gift. You should give the gift receipt only to a store that sells svarim and nothing else.
I see,
But if it's an Amazon and then they return it, they might buy something else with it.
But it's supposed to buy for yourself a sefer, right?
Correct.
And you can make a stipulation for yourself then, right?
You make a stipulation for yourself as well. Correct.
I see, so that could be a leeway to get around it.
Correct. Yeah, but you have to make sure to make that stipulation.
But in actual fact, I don't like to give up any sefer I have. I mean, it's theoretical, but it's good to know just in case.
Correct. Fine. So we're going to go from here to some halachas, a little more about Shabbos. Siman Ayin Beis, have it, and we're going to do it with some salt and pepper, and not just the actual halacha, but also a little bit more pirushim from different tzaddikim and a little bit of pirushim chassidus. We're holding halacha zayin in Siman Ayin Beis, chapter 72. Halacha zayin. So Monday, Tuesday, Mr. Hashem will do v'yadaita Moskva. We have the Maimer of the Rebbe Hershel, but we have it split up into lessons, the 30 lessons. So we'll go through that one by one. I have the Sefer here. If anybody wants a copy, you could order it on Amazon. It's a very enjoyable way of going through the Maimer, not just the facts, but the application of it. And 2 days a week, we'll learn halacha, halacha Shabbos right now.
What sefer is that?
It's V'yadaita Moskva by Rabbi David Vigler. Rabbi David Vigler. It's more than just a translation. It's lessons in the Sefer. So Yachin Basar V'Dagim Yafim At'amim V'Yayin Meshubach K'fi Yechalto. One should prepare good food as much as possible for Shabbos. We did this yesterday. We're holding last time. Ches. Afilu ani should be Israel. Even a poor person, someone who cannot afford much. Yizdades, these amitz lanigas Shabbos must do the most they can to make Shabbos delightful. Yitzamtzim chol shavua k'tei she'tiyah le'moisach havet Shabbos, and the entire week one should not spend a lot of money in order to save for Shabbos. If you have no money for Shabbos, you could borrow money for Shabbos. It says even if you have to take collateral, you should borrow money to prepare for Shabbos. Amru Razal, and this is what our sages have told us. Banai, levu alai vani pereya. Hashem said, my children, better to borrow on my cheshbon, on my account, and I will pay you back. Hashem guarantees it will pay us back for the needs of Shabbos. And everything is decided on Rosh Hashanah, as we learned in Kuntres Umayin, except for the expenses of Shabbos and Yom Tiv. And we have also tradition, also the expenses of your children's weddings.
I remember Rabbi Watson was
Say it
saying,
again, the expenses.
Of your children's weddings.
I remember Rabbi Watson mentioned one time, I'm not sure if he was dealing with the question of, on one hand, a Russian decree, on the other hand, and so what's actually the Mishnah? I just don't remember what he gave his answer.
So you remember what we learned in Kuntres Umayin?
No. Oh, yeah.
We learned it,
Oh, yeah.
that it's decided in Rosh Hashanah as like the pledge, and every day we have to bring out that pledge into actuality.
Yeah.
Right? It goes from Atik and Arich. It goes into Chesed of Atzilus on Rosh Hashanah.
Mm-hmm.
Throughout the year, every day we're bringing it down from the Chesed of Atzilus down to this world.
Mm-hmm.
If one really is in a very tight financial spot, on this our sages have said, better to make your Shabbos same as a weekday and not have to need to rely on other people. Nevertheless, one should do at least something new in honor of Shabbos. At least one should eat sardines on Shabbos if they didn't do it. It says dagim tanim. That was the common food that they had back then. The Alter Rebbe, when he was in prison, and he couldn't have anything special for Shabbos, he had a handkerchief with him, and every Friday he would cut it up into small pieces, and every Friday he attached another piece to his clothes, so he should have a new garment in honor of Shabbos.
Oh.
So at least something in honor of Shabbos. He cut a piece of his handkerchief and he connected it to his clothes, his garment. That he should have a new garment in honor of Shabbos.
It was the Alter Rebbe, you said?
No, the Alter Rebbe was in prison.
Ah.
The Shulchan Aruch paskins, the Alter Rebbe paskins differently. Says that one who, if you were sent food for Shabbos, you can't use it on the weekday, you have to use it on Shabbos. Alter Rebbe says that's the best thing to do, but it's not really an obligation. There's a well-known story about a chassid, Rabbi Tzvi. He was a great chassid of Tzemach Tzedek. He, until the age of 40, barely knew how to read Hebrew till the age of 40.
Well, that's like Rabbi
And
Tzvi.
correct. And even later on in his life, he had a hard time learning and understanding. I say Hebrew words were very hard for him, except when it came to Chassidus. At that age, he has a story with the Alter Rebbe. He had tremendous desire to learn. There was like a young 20-year-old student who was returning from the Alter Rebbe and was repeating the Gemara of the Alter Rebbe, and he tried hard over and over to understand, and he couldn't understand the thing, and he paid for the person to stay in his town. Almost ended up being almost another month, first a week and then another week, and he paid him more and more and more. Teach me, I want to understand, and he couldn't understand the thing. And he fasted and he called himself names, and he went to the Alter Rebbe, and eventually the Alter Rebbe gave him a bracha, a blessing, and he says, you bring life to everyone. So you can see a Lepler ended up becoming a tremendous, deep thinker in Chassidus. And
it was only in Chassidus.
Only Chassidus, because he received a bracha from the Alter Rebbe. The Frierdiker Rebbe brought him as an example, as someone whose achievements happen as a result of the bracha of the Rebbe. Therefore, the bracha didn't transfer to other areas of Torah scholarship. It was specifically in Chassidus. But Imre Bina, the Mittler Rebbe, was written for him, which is a very deep mamarim. And so he received a bracha from the Tzemach Tzedek for a long life. He lived to be very long. And there was one time he came to the Tzemach Tzedek for Pesach. And for all the important, prestigious guests, the Tzemach Tzedek would send provisions for the Seder. So he sent them matzah and maror and wine, charoses. He sent them to the important guests that came, including Rebbe Lepler. So the night before Pesach, night of B'dikas Chametz, Rebbe Lepler is getting ready for B'dikas Chametz, checking for Chametz, especially the avodah of checking for your own Chametz inside. And he's really having a very hard time, preparing for it.
This was the one that you was giving special bracha by the Rebbe.
Yeah, correct. And he gets a knock on the door, and he gets a knock. He opens the door, and it's a Tzemach Tzedek's Misharis attendant, Rebbe Leivik, and he says the Rebbe sent this for you, and he gave him a package of matzah and wine and maror, haroisas for the seder. So right away, because Lepler said, if the Rebbe sends something, it means that's something that I need right away. So he took it all, he put it into one big cup, the matzah and the maror and the charoises, and put it into one big cup, and he ate it right away. And then he continued getting ready for the B'dikas Chametz. Comes the next night, the night of the Seder, and he knocks on the house of the Tzemach Tzedek. He says, Rebbe, help! I don't have anything for the Seder. I don't have any matzah or wine for the Seder. So they open the doors. Lepler, what's happening? And so he comes. They allow him into the Tzemach Tzedek Seder. He says, Rebbe, I have nothing for the Seder. So the Tzemach Tzedek asks, you didn't receive the package that we sent you? He said, yes, Rebbe, thank you so much for sending it. I was not able to start B'dikas Chametz until you sent it. Once you sent it, I was able to start the avodah B'dikas Chametz. So Tzemach Tzedek laughed very much, and he says he could stay by my Seder. Later on, he said he received enough avodah for 15 years, work for 15 years, for being at the Seder of the Tzemach Tzedek. The Rebbe explained the story, and the Rebbe says, was Lepler, he didn't know what matzah and maror was? Obviously, he knew what matzah and maror was. But what he saw to himself was that he right now had a dilemma. How should he approach doing B'dikas Chametz? The Alter Rebbe took a whole night to check for Chametz in this one-room house because of the avodah of B'dikas Chametz. So how could he prepare for it? And if he gets a package from the Rebbe, that means the Rebbe is here to help me for what I'm doing right now. So that immediately he went and took everything he got from the Rebbe and helped him do the avodah of B'dikas Chametz. And what will be later, says the Rebbe, will worry about it then as well. And that's what ended up happening. But the idea was that if something was given to me now, it's a sign that I have to take advantage and to use it now. Tes. Ein lasis melacha. Derech keva be'erev Shabbos, one should not on Friday do any type of labor that is a labor which one is a set thing. And one shouldn't start painting their house starting from half hour after midday on Friday. If it's a temporary thing, you're allowed to do it. If you need something done for Shabbos, you're allowed to do it even that day. So if you need your kapata sewn, a button sewn on Friday, you're allowed to do it even close to Shabbos. On Friday afternoon. Usually you shouldn't start sewing on Friday afternoon, but if you need it done for that day, it's okay. You're not allowed to make clothes for your friend, even if it's Friday afternoon, only for yourself. However, if someone's poor and they need to work on Friday in order to earn money for Shabbos, then they're allowed to work even on Friday afternoon. You are allowed to give a haircut to another person on Erev Shabbos the entire day. Even if you're a barber, you're allowed to do it. Even if you're getting paid, you're allowed to be open on Friday afternoon. Because it's a very big Shabbos, a very big, beautiful thing that someone should walk around Shabbos with their hair cut, and so people are noticing it and they're doing it in honor of Shabbos. Yesh liskers chanuya shachas Shabbos baderech ayin leelsim samaches Hatzvi-Bais, and you should close your stores an hour before Shabbos. And if you go to the museum outside of the Beis Hamikdash, they have a museum where they found many different artifacts from the Beis Hamikdash, and one of them was a very large stone which I don't know, almost as wide as between these two pillars over here, about 10 feet long, very, very large stone, which had a cutout in the corner, and it says over there in old Hebrew letters, Makom HaChatzotzra, the place of the trumpets. The place of the trumpets. I'll find it while we go. It's in the Mishnah Mesechta Shabbos says how they had a place in Eretz Yisrael, a place by the Beis Hamikdash where there was a trumpeter, someone with a trumpet would stand on the wall of the Temple Mount, and he would blow a shofar blast. One blast would be that people should close their stores. One blast, people should come in from the field. 2 blasts, people should close their stores. 3 blasts is that to get ready for Shabbos. You have it now in many Jewish places. You have what's called an alarm, right? The Shabbos alarm. I found it. I'm going to show that, and then we'll pause for today. You have a Shabbos alarm, right? A very loud alarm sound, almost like an alarm type of sound.
Welcome to the Journal. Today we're here next to the trumpeting place. What is the trumpeting place and why is it so significant? The trumpeting place is an interesting and a unique feature of the Temple Mount. It was located right here at the top of the southwestern corner of the complex above the Robinson's Lounge and near the Gates, which were the main entrance to the Temple Mount during the time of the Second Temple. The trumpeting place is a raised platform made of stone and is the spot where Jewish priests, the Kohens, used to blow the silver trumpet, called the shofar, which is made out of the kosher animal horn to signal the beginning and the ending of Shabbat, Saturday, or other religious holidays. The tradition to announce with the trumpet sound took place in Jerusalem during the Second Temple period, and it is mentioned in several places in Hebrew scriptures. Also, the historian Yosef ben Matityahu, famously known by the name Josephus Flavius, writes that in Jerusalem it was customary to blow the trumpets at the top of the Temple Mount area, and the pole was built on the top of the mountain in a place where one of the priests used to stand every Shabbat evening and blow the trumpet as a sign that the night comes. In the late 60s, an amazing archaeological discovery happened while archaeologist Professor Benjamin Mazal was excavating this place where I'm now standing. Professor Mazal found a stone block carefully engraved with fine lines, and in its inner part, a legible square Hebrew alphabet, which read Lebet Atkiya, which means to the place of trumpeting. Right now, we are standing next to the stone block, except that the part with the text is only a replica, and the original stone block with the text was cut out to avoid theft. The original text currently sits in the Israel Museum in Jerusalem. As you can see here, the first word is translated as to the place, and the second word of trumpeting, giving the phrase to the trumpeting place. The subsequent words of the inscription are cut off. The third word, leha, which is incomplete, has been interpreted as either declared or distinct distinguish, given either to declare or to distinguish, where the words in square brackets represent what scholars predict to be the full version. The inscribed stone was probably thrown over after the destruction of the temple and the city in the year 70, where it remained for nearly 1900 years until Professor Mazal found it. The trumpeting place was built in this strategic point because it overlooked a crowded area, and it was believed that the sound of the trumpets and the shofar could be heard throughout the entire city of Jerusalem. This is presumably true, as its location was a vantage point in terms of acoustics, which amplifies the sound of the trumpet all over Jerusalem. This served as a reminder for the Jewish people of their religious obligations. This special stone block can be found near the place it once stood, and indeed tells the story of the temple and its destruction to anyone who sees it. Thanks for joining us on the journey to uncover the historical place of the trumpet.
When was
Okay.
this from? They were doing excavation on.
Yeah, about 50 years ago. Okay, and with that, we will pause till tomorrow, Amir Hashem, and tomorrow, same.